They talk about speed reading courses, apps that promise you triple your reading speed, techniques from Silicon Valley. But nobody talks about what intelligence agencies actually do with text, how the CIA reads a 1,000-page report in an hour, how analysts trained at Langley pull meaning from chaos when lives depend on it, the methods they use to see what you miss. This is not about reading faster. This is about reading smarter when the cost of missing one detail can kill. People who read everything and still got it wrong. Iraq weapons of mass destruction in 2003, September 11th, 2001, Pearl Harbor in 1941. These were not reading problems. These were thinking problems. This script is researched and factual, using sources from declassified CIA training documents housed in the Freedom of Information Act electronic reading room, published January 24th, 1997, and the CIA Center for the Study of Intelligence publication, Psychology of Intelligence Analysis from March 1999, still used to train analysts today. Now back to the information. Heuer discovered cognitive psychology in 1977, International Studies Association Convention. He read Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, the psychologists who proved humans are terrible probability calculators, terrible at logic when stakes are high, terrible at separating signal from noise. Heuer realized the intelligence community had a problem. Analysts were drowning in information but starving for insight. They read everything: cables, reports, signals intelligence, human intelligence, imagery analysis, thousands of pages daily. But reading more did not mean understanding more. The human tendency to seek information that supports what you already believe, to ignore information that contradicts it. Every intelligence failure of the 20th century had confirmation bias in its DNA. Everything that matters, not just evidence for your favorite theory. Everything. Step 3. Create a matrix, hypotheses across the top, evidence down the left side. Step 4. Work through the matrix. Mark each piece of evidence as consistent, inconsistent, or neutral with each hypothesis. It looks for evidence that refutes theories. The hypothesis with the least inconsistent evidence wins, not the one with the most supporting evidence, the one that survives the most attacks. Intelligence community reported there was no indication the Indians would test in the near term. They were wrong. India tested. The analysts confused an unproven hypothesis with a disproved hypothesis. If India planned to test while concealing preparations, would you see evidence? No, so no evidence means nothing. If I do not see it, is that because the hypothesis is false or because the evidence is hidden? This question saved careers, saved operations, saved lives. Center for the Study of Intelligence. They want people to learn this. They need people to learn this. Make them tear it apart. Find every weakness, every assumption, every gap in logic. This is not about being negative. This is about pressure testing conclusions before they reach policymakers, before presidents make decisions that cannot be unmade. Reveals assumptions nobody stated. Reveals what each side takes for granted. Key assumptions. Check. Every analysis rests on assumptions. Unstated beliefs, things you take as given. Write them down, all of them. Then ask, what if this assumption is wrong? How does the analysis change? Often the house of cards collapses. One wrong assumption. Entire assessment invalid. High impact, low probability analysis. What if analysis. Each one a weapon against cognitive bias. Each one designed to make you see what you are programmed to miss. Sherman Kent School for Intelligence Analysis. Both programs hammer the same principles. They have agendas. Signals intelligence is incomplete. Intercepted communications show what people say, not what they think. Imagery shows what things look like, not what they mean. Treat every piece of information as potentially wrong until you verify it. Relevance. Does this information help answer the question, or is it just noise? Most information is noise. Distinguish between evidence and inference. Evidence is what you observe. Inference is what you conclude. The line between them blurs when you read fast, when you read carelessly. Keep them separate. State your evidence clearly. State your inference clearly. Show the logical chain connecting them. A CIA analyst in Baghdad in 2007 reading signals intelligence about a car bomb plot. If they miss the signal, people die. A counterintelligence officer reading a walk-in's debriefing. If they miss the deception, the enemy learns what you know. A strategic analyst reading economic data about China. If they miss the trend, policymakers make trillion-dollar mistakes. The Socratic method applied to reading. Ask questions of the text. Why is this here? Why now? Why this source? Why this phrasing? What is the source not saying? What would contradict this? What alternatives exist? Questions force active engagement. Questions prevent passive absorption. Questions reveal assumptions. Analytic standards. Every intelligence product must meet these, must use proper sourcing, must note uncertainty, must consider alternatives, must distinguish between what happened, why it happened, and what might happen next, must explain their logic. The standard is not to eliminate bias, impossible, but to minimize its impact, to make it visible, to compensate for it. But they fail in complex analytical environments where threats do not jump from bushes. The first number you see sets the baseline for all subsequent estimates. If an initial report says a group has 1,000 fighters, later reports get judged against that number. Even if the number was wrong, even if it was a guess, it anchors your thinking. Analysts in the same office, reading the same traffic, talking to the same people, reach the same conclusions. They reinforce each other. No one wants to be the person who disagrees, but sometimes the person who disagrees is right. Feeling certain is not the same as being certain. The feeling lies. ACH showed mixed evidence for reducing confirmation bias, may have increased judgment inconsistency. Using is not the same as using correctly. National Security Volume 33 from November 2018. Now back to the story. One declassified CIA training document from the Cold War era discusses information science training, teaching analysts probability theory, statistics, decision trees, Bayesian analysis, network analysis, systems dynamics, operations research. The goal was not to make analysts read faster, it was to make them think in systems, to see connections, to quantify uncertainty. Strategic cost analysis model, arsenal exchange model. These were not reading tools, these were thinking tools. Tools to organize information, to test hypotheses, to model outcomes. The bottleneck was never reading speed, it was analytical rigor. Only then the full text if needed. This saves time on irrelevant papers, helps you quickly assess whether a document matters. One researcher in November 2024 called this the reverse CIA method. Reading order, abstract, introduction, conclusion. The acronym CIA reversed, not an official CIA technique, but born from the same problem. Too much information, too little time. Scanning and skimming appear in analyst training materials, not as primary reading methods, but as triage tools. Skimming for main ideas, scanning for specific keywords. When you have 500 cables in 2 hours, you skim to find the 10 cables that matter. Then you read those 10 carefully, slowly, with full attention. The fast reading is not the important reading, it is the filter before the important reading. Close reading is where analysis happens, paragraph by paragraph, sentence by sentence, word by word. Why did the source use this phrase? Why not that one? What does the phrasing reveal about the source's knowledge, about their intention, about their state of mind? This takes time, cannot be rushed, should not be rushed. Missing one word can mean missing the warning. The Kubark Manual, declassified in 1997, discusses interrogation, not reading, but it reveals how CIA thinks about extracting information from resistant sources. The principles apply to reading. Every document is a resistant source. It does not want to reveal its secrets easily. You must interrogate it, press it, test it, look for contradictions, look for gaps, look for what it tries to hide. The manual talks about manipulation of environment, creating conditions where the source reveals more than intended. When reading, you manipulate your own environment. Quiet space, no interruptions, no distractions. Brain needs full capacity to detect subtle signals in text. Partial attention means partial understanding, means partial analysis, means bad decisions. Precision. If you can write clearly, you can read clearly. If you can identify weak arguments in your own writing, you can identify them in others' writing. The CIA Analytic Thinking and Presentation Training Handbook, declassified and archived, teaches expository writing, plain talk, straightforward communication, no jargon, no flowery prose. Every sentence serves a purpose. Readers are busy, make your point, move on. The handbook lists bloopers from intelligence drafts. The sinister image that the country increasingly enjoys? Curry the disfavor of. This will be an exceedingly tight rope to walk. The hierarchical structure borders on anarchy. Mixed metaphors, tortured syntax, confusion dressed as sophistication. If you write like this, you cannot think clearly. If you think clearly, you do not write like this. The connection runs both ways. Structure your writing in 5 parts. Synthesis, the big picture, the bottom line, the major judgment in one sentence. Substantiation, prove your focus with specific evidence. Perspective, broader views, alternative scenarios, ambiguities. Outlook, forward-looking judgments. Implications, impact on the United States or your consumer. This structure forces clarity, forces you to separate what you know from what you infer from what you predict. Reading uses the same structure in reverse. When you read an intelligence product, look for the synthesis first. What is the analyst claiming? Then look for substantiation. What evidence supports the claim? Then check perspective. Did they consider alternatives? Then examine outlook. Are predictions realistic? Finally assess implications. Do they matter? If synthesis is unclear, the analyst does not know what they are saying. If substantiation is weak, they have no evidence. If perspective is absent, they have not considered alternatives. If outlook is missing, they are only describing the present, not forecasting the future. If implications are vague, why does anyone care? Thinking. Clarity, accuracy, precision, relevance, depth, breadth, logic, significance, fairness. Apply these to everything you read. Is it clear? Can you understand it? Is it accurate? Does evidence support it? Is it precise? Do specifics exist or just generalities? Is it relevant? Does it matter to your question? Does it have depth? Does it address complexities? Does it have breadth? Does it consider other perspectives? Is it logical? Do conclusions follow from premises? Is it significant? Does it address important issues? Is it fair? Is it free from bias? It reconstructs memories from fragments. Each time you recall something, you change it slightly. Add details that were not there. Remove details that were. Confidence in memory has no correlation with memory accuracy. The most confident memories are often the most wrong. When you write the analysis later, you can verify, you can check, you can catch errors before they reach policymakers. Visual organization, central concept in the middle. Related ideas branching out, connections drawn between branches. This works for analysts who think spatially, who see patterns in structure, who need to visualize relationships. Your biological brain is for thinking, not storing. Surfaces alternative readings of the same text. When hierarchy suppresses junior analysts who see problems seniors miss, the 2004 intelligence reforms tried to address this, tried to create space for dissent, for red teams, for devil's advocates. Implementation varied. Interpretation, understanding significance of information. Analysis, breaking down information into components. Inference, correlating related items. Synthesis, combining information to understand relationships. Evaluation, judging credibility and strength. Argument, creating logical steps. Reasoning, arriving at conclusions through evidence. Production, creating new ways of viewing information. Interpretation, what does this text mean? Analysis, what are its parts? Inference, how do parts connect? Synthesis, what is the whole picture? Evaluation, is it credible? Argument, does it make logical sense? Reasoning, what conclusions follow? Production, what new insights emerge? Every document a test, from techniques that force them outside their mental habits. Avoid bias means nothing. Check whether you are seeking information that confirms your hypothesis or information that refutes it means something. Specific, actionable, testable. Reading is measured in lives. When a CIA officer reads a recruitment pitch from a potential agent, the difference between careful reading and careless reading determines whether the agent is real or a double. Where I did not have time is not an excuse. The methods used by intelligence agencies are not secret. They are published, free, available online. Psychology of Intelligence Analysis, Tradecraft, Primer on Structured Analytic Techniques. Intelligence Community Directive, 203, training materials from the Sherman Kent School, research papers on cognitive bias, all of it accessible, all of it ignored by most people. Require discipline, require you to question yourself. Easier to trust your gut, easier to go with your first impression, easier to read what feels right. But easy is not effective. Easy is how you miss warnings. Easy is how you make mistakes. Easy is how you fail. It means reading with techniques that compensate for your brain's weaknesses. Your brain lies to you. It sees patterns that are not there, misses patterns that are, remembers things that never happened, forgets things that did. These are not bugs. These are features. Evolution optimized your brain for survival on the African savanna, not for making sense of geopolitical intelligence in the information age. Structure, process, method. Write things down. Check your work. Test alternatives. Question assumptions. Look for disconfirming evidence. These techniques do not make you superhuman. They make you slightly less wrong. In intelligence work, slightly less wrong is the difference between success and failure. Each refined through decades of use. Some methods work better than others. Some analysts use them better than others. But all of them share a common philosophy. Do not trust your intuition. Do not trust your memory. Do not trust your first read. Verify, question, test. Declassified later. The article warned analysts about hindsight bias, the tendency to see past events as more predictable than they were. After an event happens, it seems obvious. Before it happened, it was not obvious. Analysts who suffer from hindsight bias think they could have predicted what they could not have predicted. This makes them overconfident in future predictions. Overconfidence kills. Heuer published, "Do you really need more information in studies in intelligence?" The answer, usually no. Analysts think more information will resolve uncertainty. It does not. It increases confidence without increasing accuracy. A deadly combination, confident and wrong. The solution is not more information. The solution is better analysis of existing information. Use the techniques, apply the structure, stop reading, start thinking. 1981, Heuer published Strategies for Analytical Judgment and Biases in Evaluation of Evidence, both in Studies in Intelligence, both laying groundwork for what would become ACH, both arguing that traditional analytical approaches fail because they do not account for how humans actually think, for how brains actually work, for how biases actually operate. Psychology of Intelligence Analysis, published 1999, free online since then, thousands of analysts trained on it, hundreds of academic programs teaching it. Still relevant 25 years later because the problems it addresses have not changed. Human cognition has not changed, biases have not changed, the information environment has changed, more data, more noise, more disinformation, more pressure. But the solutions remain the same: structure, process, method. Managed production of intelligence analysis, served as National Intelligence Officer for Latin America, Chief of CIA Strategic Planning and Management Staff. He knows what works. He knows what analysts actually use versus what looks good in training. The book reflects this: practical, specific, usable. Focused on teaching these skills, not just describing them, how to run workshops, how to facilitate discussions, how to evaluate whether students are learning. Education is not about information transfer. Education is about skill development. The book provides tools for developing skills. Analysts joining today have resources analysts in 1951 did not have. They have frameworks, have techniques, have research, have training programs, have examples of what works and what fails. Quality control matters. Peer review, supervision, feedback. Analysts write products. Other analysts review them, check the logic, check the evidence, check the assumptions, challenge conclusions. This is not bureaucracy. This is quality assurance. Mistakes caught before they reach consumers, before they influence policy, before they cause harm. Independent analysts, not part of the original team, attack the analysis. Try to tear it down, find weaknesses, find alternatives. If the analysis survives red team review, it is stronger. If it does not survive, better to find out now than after publication. Groupthink. Confirmation bias. Failure to consider alternatives. Failure to challenge assumptions. Failure to communicate uncertainty. These failures were not about reading speed, not about information access. They were about thinking, about process, about method. Change the culture, change training, change standards. Did it work? Partially. Some agencies implemented well, others less so. Culture change takes time, takes leadership, takes sustained effort. The techniques are not magic. They do not guarantee correct answers. They reduce error rates. They make thinking visible. They create audit trails. But they require time, require training, require institutional support. When the analyst is wrong, nobody knows why. Nobody can identify the error. Nobody can fix it. Nobody can learn from it. In intelligence work, being able to explain why you were wrong is almost as important as being right, because that is how you improve. That is how institutions learn. You might read the full report, you might not. Depends on your question, depends on your role, depends on your timeline. Analysts need the full process, need to see how conclusions were reached, need to evaluate the logic, different audiences, different needs, different reading strategies. The analyst at Langley reading a field report needs context, background, strategic implications. They skim the operational minutiae. Same document, different reading strategies, different focus. If you do not know normal, you cannot spot anomalies. This is learned. Months, years. Experience builds mental models. Models help filter, help prioritize. Change is information. Consistency is information. Both tell you something. The QBARC manual discusses this. How to evaluate source credibility during interrogation. Does the source have direct access? Secondhand? Thirdhand? Are details consistent? Do they change between tellings? Does the source show knowledge they should not have if lying? Do they show ignorance they should not have if telling truth? These questions apply to reading reports, apply to reading anything. Deception is easy in one direction, hard in another. Easy to claim false knowledge, hard to fake detailed, consistent knowledge over time. Easy to lie about motives, hard to sustain false motives under questioning. Interrogators use this. Analysts use this. Readers can use this. Are sources named or anonymous? Why anonymous? What do sources gain from talking? These questions separate journalism from propaganda, separate reporting from speculation. Most readers do not ask them. In a world where adversaries run information operations, where disinformation is weaponized, where every source might be compromised, healthy skepticism is survival. To create matrices, to test alternatives, to seek disconfirming evidence. You believe misinformation, nobody dies. But this consequence-free environment trains bad habits, trains you to read carelessly, to trust intuition, to skip verification. Then when it matters, when you need to read carefully, you cannot. The skills atrophied, the discipline disappeared. The methods they developed are methods for high-stakes reading, high-stakes thinking, high-stakes decision-making. Heuer died August 21st, 2018. Age 91, he left behind a legacy, not of speed reading, not of information processing hacks, a legacy of rigorous thinking, of structured analysis, of intellectual honesty, of recognizing human limitations and building systems to compensate for them. The problems he identified remain unsolved. Cognitive biases did not disappear. Confirmation bias did not go away. Analysts still struggle with the same issues analysts struggled with in 1977. The difference is now they have tools. have frameworks, have methods. The knowledge exists, the research exists, all available, all free, all waiting for people who care enough to use them. The method that defined modern intelligence analysis for decades showed mixed results when rigorously tested. The challenge continues. Techniques built from psychology, from experience, from failure, from learning what breaks and what holds, from decades of analysts reading millions of documents and discovering what works when everything is on the line, can question instead of accept, can think instead of react.